We are on AyinBase 13, about a quarter from the top. The line begins legumray mehamoyer. So we had our struggle yesterday, and the day before. But throughout this whole discussion, one principle should surface. It should begin, so to speak, to settle in the mind. What is meant by oyer, by the word oyer? On the one hand, it should be a simple and obvious thing. On the other hand, when we look at it from a gashmizdike level, then oyer is just a functional Ayin. It's not illumination, just illumination. There's an actual activity involved. And this is why the Rebbe keeps on bringing back that even though chochmah becomes a mitzias, it is still called oyer. And the principle of oyer, what qualifies as oyer? That which represents not itself, but the moyer. That's what oyer is. Like we say, the sun is etzem behiri, and there is oyer emanating and nimshach from the sun. There are two different oyers. There is the oyer that is manufactured, so to speak, by the energy of the sun, by the heat of the sun. This is not representative of the light of the sun. This is a mitzias that the sun creates. Oyer is truly representative of moyer, meaning that there is a moyer. This moyer is in a different category completely. Everything in the moyer is the essential reality, not a created and active reality. And oyer is representative of that. This is why we say that the real Ayin that is reflected in the world, in our physical world of the sun, is not that we are able to see objects, but that the entire reality of the world becomes day, lit up. Darkness doesn't exist. That is, in a certain sense, representative of sun, where sun is oyer b'yatz. It's a behiri b'yatz. That's a behiri. And the phenomenal Ayin is, and this is what we are struggling throughout for a long time, that even though this oyer comes through the tzimtzum, and it is such an oyer that can be mislabish in kelim, and yet still it remains in the category of oyer, and it's still connected to the moyer. is still representative of the moil. And one of the mashalim that we used yesterday to demonstrate this kind of a thing is that the instance of the host and the guest. And we pointed out the host and the guest have there is a special oil relationship there. Like we said, even if the host should leave suddenly, there is nothing left. Very special, very subtle principle. On the other hand, when the host serves the meal, and now their relationship is translated in something very tangible, it remains representative of that subtle quality. Because should the guest at that time take the meal and says, fine meal, I'll pack it up, I'll go home. I'll eat it at my table. The whole thing is lost. The whole thing is lost. It's complete misunderstanding. In other words, even after it becomes a mitzias, it retains this subtle quality, the quality of this truth. This is what we're trying to bring out over here. This is why the oyer, even after the tzimtzum, it's still called oyer. Even though now it is an oyer that can be identified and it can be in slavish and kelim and so forth. Even in the keli it remains oyer. I want to finish this statement because this will help us, and this is a very important thing. You say, there's a concept of a table in a person's nefesh. We discuss it a lot of times. And then this concept is translated in a physical table, in a structure. And we are sitting in front of a table. This sitting in front of the table, even though we're sitting in front of a physical table, a real structure, in a keli, so to speak, there remains the sense that this is a spiritual concept, a human concept. And only a human being appreciates that the presence of the table. Even though it's a physical structure that one can interpret as being util and useful and supportive, making it easier, there is that spiritual sense that remains in it. To the extent that we say that if one eats the shuk, if he eats walking around, not by sitting by a table, he's lacking some kind of a human quality. At least for that moment. All right, enough of that. All right, so we are on the line that begins with the word legumray. And this line legumray concludes a certain point, namely that the oil that ends up to be manifest after the tzimtzum even though it is an oil that is representative of the original oil for the Tzimtzum oil in Seif, just as we spoken about the Masholim. Yet, it is representative of the oil before, but it has to come through the Tzimtzum. The fact that it comes through the Tzimtzum, which means, as we discussed yesterday, that there remains the principle here in this oil, that there was a moment where it was not, and then it was nimshach again. It's called hisalmus oil, that the oil was withdrawn and concealed, and then it was nimshach again. That makes it able to relate to world. As we discussed yesterday, it has a beginning, even though it is a representative of oil inside. The Imlay came, for if it were not to go through the Tzimtzum, it would not be in the quality of oil, in the kind of oil that can relate to world. Makes a difference which world. World in general. Which we discussed yesterday, the principle of world. וגם אחר כך, okay, now we're going further. וגם אחר כך. And so too, אחר כך, afterwards, when the oil is already נמשך, המשכוסוי על ידי נקודות הרשימו. This oil is נמשך. Besides the fact that it goes through the Tzimtzum, which means it goes through a moment where it is not, as we discussed yesterday, but then also it comes through al-dei nekudas harshimu, through the nekuda, through the point of the nishimu. We'll discuss it more. Al-dei zeh bo b'mchinas kiyach gvuli. As a result of that, it represents a quality of koyach gvuli, of a finite and limited force, a limited power. The principle of Rishima, this is the first time we didn't encounter this yet in this moment. The expression in Eitz Chaim, when he says about the Tzimtzum, so he says that there was a Tzimtzum, and the Tzimtzum totally withdrew the Gilui Oir, but there remained what's called a Rishima. What's a Rishima? Rishima means a trace of that oil which was there before. What is this? What is the difference between the oil the way it was and the rishimu that came afterward? The oil that was before is brigvu evin soil. The rishimu, this is a very limited representation of that oil as it was before, and this is called nekudas of rishimu. A nakuda means one single point.
This is not the kav. This is something.
This is not the kav. The kav is nimshach through the rishim.
Kav is nimshach
through the rishim. Okay, we'll see how far we're going to go discussing Rishim. Let us just go inside a little bit. שעל-ידי זה בו בבחינת כוח גבולי. על-ידי זה, as a result of the fact that it goes to the nekuda of Rishimu, it comes through in a manner that it represents a koyach gvuli. A koyach gvuli means a limited, a koyach that represents some kind of a limited functionality. This means koyach gvuli. Okay, there's much to be discussed here. I want to cover a little bit, and then we'll see what we can enrich this. Koyach Gevuli means something quite very readily recognizable. Let's say a person has a koyach hatnua in his hand. He has a koyach hatnua. Everybody knows a koyach hatnua. The koyach to move his hand. The koyach hatnua is without definition. It's it's unlimited. You can move your hand in any which way. The koyach hatnua it results in every kind of action. You can bang a nail, and you can draw a drawing. It's all part of the koyach hatnua. In order to draw from the koyach hatnua a specific action, one cannot just go and do it. He has to, in fact, withdraw the koyach hatnua and then bring it back in a very focused, in a very definitive manner. You cannot draw a fine drawing while at the same time say, okay, I can really bang a nail in. It just will not happen. Even though it's the same koyach hatnua, when it comes to a shima, to a nekuda, and then the kuda allows exclusively that aspect of the koyach hatnua. Therefore, it becomes a koyach gvuli. It's interesting that even when you talk about coarse activity, like banging a nail or fixing physical things, you say he has good hands. It means like good hands. He has a brain. The hands can do anything. It's not the hands who are doing it. The whole person is involved. It's his talent, his seichel. It's not the hands. And that we say he attributed to the hands. Because yes, indeed, you take the seichel and the midah and so forth, but ultimately, it is where the koyach hatnua in the hand, the koyach of the hand, becomes totally subservient to the intent of the mind, and as a result, its course and its general koyach is concealed, and it allows to come through only that quality that is actually representative of the seichel. That's what we say. It's in the hand, because the hand has acquired a certain refinement, a connection to the seichel, to the point where the hand is actually representative of the seichel. So this is what he's saying over here, that even after the tzimtzum and it's nimshach, it's not nimshach, it's the same oyer, but it's not nimshach now, without a focus, without a funnel. It goes through the keach harshim, and therefore when it comes through, it becomes koyach gvuli, which means that every aspect of the oyer represents a certain functionality. Even though there is unlimited functionality, but there is now element of functionality.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to explain it, but...
Yeah, let's leave it.
Hello?
You were all over in Golis yesterday. Yes, Baruch.
So, Koyach Gvuli is the Rishimum, or what happens as a result of the Rishimum?
No, the Rishima, this is the Koyach Gvul. The Rishima, the Koyach Gvul should be in safe. And then, the other is Nimshach to the Rishima.
So you're saying, however, that the Rishima itself, this is a trace of the oyer before the oyer was
Right.
extracted.
That's right. Rishima is a trace of the Oyer Shelifnei HaTzimtzum.
And yet this trace now, even though it's oyer that stayed safe before the Tzimtzum, now it comes Koyach HaGvul. It seems paradoxical.
Right. So leave that as a paradox. V'zehu klalus inyan hatzimtzum. Zehu klalus inyan hatzimtzum. This is the overall a principle of the tzimtzum. Shehu b'derech klal. That in general, what is the meaning of the tzimtzum? Sheyiyeh be'eifan acher mikmei shehoya koydem. That the oil that comes after the tzimtzum should be be'oifan acher, in a different manner than the way it was before. What is the difference? In what way do we describe this difference? Shehoya hakoy bibchinas ein soif. That before it was hakoil, everything was bibchinas ein soif, had the quality of ein soif. The koyach hagvul hoya behelam legamri. The koyach hagvul was totally concealed. Okay, let me discuss briefly. Shoya hakoy bibchinas ein soif. What is the bechina of ein soif? Everything was bibchinas ein soif, which we discussed yesterday in terms of the initial effect of the tzimtzum. Bibchinas ein soif means, for one thing, everybody can readily recognize when they say ein soif, means that there is not a moment where it is not. It is everywhere. It is everywhere and everything. This union that is everywhere and everything, let's try focusing and understand. Everywhere and everything means that it does not have a source. It is a self-identified reality. Otherwise it couldn't be in soif. Do I see a sign of recognition?
Not sure.
I mean, something that has no beginning has no end, but something can have a beginning and no end.
Right. But what does bibchinas ein soif mean? You're right, it can have a beginning but no end. But if it has the quality of Ein Sof, it does not resort back to the beginning. It is self-identifying. It has a presence that is Ein Sof. You cannot imagine that it shouldn't be. If you cannot imagine that it shouldn't be, you'll have to revert back, okay, what's supporting it? Nothing is supporting it. We discussed in the past, like we say in davening, Toila Eretz al Belima, that the earth is supported al Belima. On what? On nothing. The earth is supported in the midst of space, on nothing. What nothing? The Rebbe wants it to be there, so it's there. This has a sort of an Ein Sof quality. We'll have to bring Makatsa to that. Just want to so you complete this. So before the Tzimtzum, everything was bivchinas Ein Sof, which means, okay, here's what it means. If you see a table over here in the middle of the room, okay, the table really stands as solid, but you have a question. What's it doing over here? There has to be some kind of a justification. What is its functionality? How come it's here? Therefore, it has, so to speak, a finite presence. Even though it's a real thing, but it has a finite presence because the right for it to be here is finite. Bivchinas Ein Sof means it does not have a finite presence. This is the way the earth was before the Tzimtzum. Didn't have to justify, how come you're here? How come I'm here? The reality is here, so I'm here.
It doesn't refer to Motzei HaRishon? There's no reference to Motzei
The Motzei HaRishon is represented in this. Yes, it does, but it has an Ein Sof quality. It's other Motzei HaRishon. So when it is b'bchinas Ein Sof, the principle of gvul does not apply, because gvul means that you identify, as I said, you identify its presence and say, here is what it's present for, this is what justifies its presence. This is the way things are in the world. The world is huge and the variety is unlimited, but everything has a presence. This is why in the Torah it says everything that Rebbe created, he gave it a name. And then after everything was created within the world, and the other Morishim became, so to speak, the representation of the entire world, he named every individual creature in the world. What's the name about? He gives it a presence. What is it here for? What justifies its existence? Nothing in the world just exists. This is the inner from Gvul. Before the Tzimtzum, everything was b'bchinas Ein Sof. It has an Ein Sof quality. And the sense of as to what brings it, what gives it a presence, it was not even a question. Yes, no? This is the difference, for example. A guest and a member of the family, a son. You have the host, you have the guest, and you have his own son. They're both sitting around the same table. The guest has a name. Who is this? The son doesn't have a name. The son is there automatically. It's not there by name. It belongs there. This is the Ayin that was accomplished by the Tzimtzum. That everything that it is possible to identify things by their individual value, individual contribution to the totality of the world. There are unlimited varieties in the world. That's because it comes from Ein Sof. And each variety, after the Tzimtzum, has its own place. The human being lives in a human society. The animal lives in the wild. And they can't mix. They can't mix. Even though they were all created by the same creator. So when they were in the Teva, when the Ein Sof was beginning, there was no problem. They could coexist together. This is the way it's going to be after Mashiach will come. Goes the Eben Kavis. But now that we are within a limit, we have the oil of Agvul, they cannot coexist. They have to have each at their place. Okay, this is it for this morning. Have a great day.